In the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Kama Daf Nun Tes, we begin 8 lines down from the top of the Amud, where the Gemara continues based on the brisa that we brought before, which we had discussed, because we wanted to explain this halacha of shishim regarding the mazik of gufay, in regards to the mazik of mammon. We say we do it based on shishim. The question is regarding niske gufay, and based on that brisa, the Gemara introduces a similar teaching regarding how do we evaluate damage that's done in someone's field. Throughout the entire world. So we're discussing today's daf are, which we mentioned in the previous daf, cut manatiyah, when the saplings are cut down, achal chaziz, if it eats in the early stages, achal smadar, eat the grapes, chash gufna, regarding the weakening of the vine, beniski gufay, the damage of the person's body. Someone piles up grain in his friend's field without permission. What is that halacha? So we had mentioned in the previous brayso already these teachings of methods of assessing damage to produce in old stages. We said kat manatiyah, if an animal uproot a young tree. We said that, okay, the Gezeri said that the Tibash Nas is Shtei Kesem, the Tibash Shtei is Arba Kesem. We said, Achal Chaziz, the animal ate it while it was still Shachas, like hay, before the actual crop grew. So basically, said, Nidim Mishur Shabba, you consider the Shachas as the fruits that eventually grew in the same field, and the Mazik pays the higher price of those fruits. Come and say, no, right? We assess the damage through the decrease in value of the entire saw it's worth before the Ruga was damaged and after the Ruga was damaged, and the Mazik pays the difference. As the Gemara previously explained, we said b'shishim, the value of a saw is assessed according to a larger field of shishim saw. Then we spoke about achlas smadar, if the animal ate fruits while they were in the initial stage. Rabbi Shloimy said, we view them as if we consider the smadar as fully grown fruit, ready to be harvested, and the mazik pays the higher price of grown fruits. Shimon says, only meaning on the words of the Chacham. The Chacham said, we assess the damage through the decrease in the value of the entire saw it's worth before the aruga was damaged and after the aruga was damaged. And Shimon, it qualifies that it says, only shoots that had no fruits are considered shachas. So then we're going to have a different halacha. That's actually what we're going to get back to this brisa as the Gemara introduces now. Amar Abaya, he says, what's this? So we had mentioned the brisa. This almost is parenthetical to really what we're discussing. We had mentioned the brisa, like we said, because we thought we're going to bring a raya, say, okay, Niski Gufa doesn't say Shishim. Here also this brisa talking about Niski Behemtai, Niski Behemtai doesn't say Shishim. Okay, so that was we brought in this whole brisa. Now, related to this, Rabbi wants to say, there was one of the opinions mentioned was Rabbi Yisi Aglili, that and on that says the Gemara that him and Rabbi Shmuel say the same thing. What was Rabbi Yisi Aglili? Rabbi Yisi Aglili was quoted as saying that when you achal chaziz, so that he says that nidain b'mishur yishabai. So how do you evaluate the chaziz? He says, look, we consider the shachas as fruits that eventually grew in the same field, meaning whatever the remnants are by the harvest season, which is going to be a certain price, that's how much you have to pay for the damage. So basically, projected value is what you have to pay according to basic Lili. So Hadamar. Shmuel, where do we find Shmuel saying the same idea? They sound like learn the brisa. Meitav said this is a well-known pasuk, which I actually discusses. Didn't we darshan this a different way in a previous sugya? But it said Meitav Sedeu Meitav Karmi Yishalom. The pasuk told her when the mazik of Shein, it says, okay, the best of his field, the best of his vineyards, he has to pay. So what does that mean? Meitav Sedeu Shanizik, Meitav Karmi Shanizik. Rabbi Shmuel says it's got to be the best of the victim, best of his fields, the best of his vineyards. Kivayim says, Leiba Akasav El Ligvas Lenizakin. Pasuk is only coming to collect from the halacha of damages, meaning that evaluation that the court evaluates 100 or 200, that he's going to collect property 100 or 200, meaning idis from the best of his properties, but kavochem lahektish and kavochem tehektish. So the Gemara explains, but don't say that Rabbi Shmuel says that you give the meitav shel nizik, which we had asked in the first parak on Daf Yomi base. What? How does that make sense? What if the guy ate an inferior roe? If the animal ate like the worst part of his, he's got to pay the best, the idis for that high quality roes which were roped off. He's got to pay for those ones. So you would say, yeah, maybe he could have eaten baravan. He says, maybe it'll be talking about that he ate a row between the rows. We don't know if it was inferior or high quality. That's what Torah is telling you. Go pay the best. The best that he has right now, so, which we have entertained this in Daf Vav. And that says the Gemara, no, we don't say that because my time. What's the reason we don't say this? Because we know when you're trying to collect, the onus of proof is on you, and you'll pay the inferior as the mazik. You wouldn't have to pay the best. It wouldn't make sense. So Ella, rather, what does Rabbi Shmuel mean when he says you got to pay the best of the victim? Not by a situation of doubt. Rather, what he's saying is that roe that was eaten, you have to pay according to what it was going to be. B'meitav d'lekamei, meitav karamai, meitav. It means the best that it was going to be. My new, what is that? Kiheich the salag, the way it would be in the harvest season, but it's not there yet. That's the type of damage you have to pay. Obviously, we know that we darshan this also a different way. My new discusses that. How does that jive well with what we had darshan Rabbi Shmuel and Kiva differently? But that's how the Gemara is interpreting right now. The Rabbi Shmuel is saying the same thing. Rabbi Lili that mitzvah station nizik means to say what it's going to be. It's at its best is what you have to pay. Okay. Another thing we learned in the Brisa, which again the Gemara is coming to qualify, and this is very again parenthetical to our sugya. But once we mentioned the Brisa, we discussed it. Amamar. So we said in the Brisa like this, that we had this case of achlas smada. If it ate, the animal ate fruits while they were in the initial stage. So there was machlekes chacham and Rabbi Shua. Shua says, okay, we view those smadar as if they were already fully grown, ready to be harvested, and the master is going to pay the higher price of grown fruits. Chacham said, no. We assess the damage through the decrease in the value of the entire saw. It's worth before the ruga was damaged and after the ruga was damaged. But then there was the following opinion. After the machlekes of Chacham Rabbi Shua, Amamar, Rabbi Shimon Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. He says, wait. When did the Chacham say this idea that we qualify this damage based on the property, not the fruits itself? There's only sha'achla l'love gefana v'yichudetenim. Only for 8 shoots that had no fruits. It's in its early stages. That's when you don't look at it as on an independent thing. You look at it as in regards to the field. Hasmadar, but if let's say this was actually this case, it sounds like that if let's say Hasmadar, but in other words, if let's say, as Rashi explains, this that Reb Shimon Yehudim is saying when it ate Lulavi Gefanim, he's going specifically on Lulavim. Like Rashi says, Lulavim, the shoots, are before it sprouted anything. Smadar is after it's the grapes started budding. So obviously Reb Shimon ben Yehudim is saying that this Allah of Roin is Kama Yesiyov, meaning not like that Chum is saying on even Achla Smadar. Shimon Yehudim says, no. It's when it ate Lulavi Gefanim Mechuyra Te'inim. Right? But Hasmadar. But if let's say it was literally in the beginning stages of budding, then obviously Rishon would hold. We view it as if it's grapes ready to be harvested, and then it would be considered as independent. But Amos Sefer says the Gemara, wait, look at the end of his words. His next words are, Achla pagim baiser, if it eats pagim or baiser, which is a later stage, who derain listen kilo on the bottom. Then we view it as if it's grapes ready to be harvested. Wait a second. The inference is smadar, which is an earlier stage. We look at it in regards to the field, not in regards to its own self. So smadar seems to be this like nishtahin nishtaher, because we're saying only lulavi gefanim for the agav karka, and we're saying only pagam abayser in regards to independent. But smadar is somewhere in between them. So the inferential halachas are contradictory. So Mavini says no karch v'tani. You have to wrap it and teach it, meaning you have to add on smadar with them in the Seifa of the Mishnah. Remember when we say this halacha of the Chacham that you'll look at it in regards to the rest of the field, not independent. It's only when you eat it when it's just shoots, when it had no fruits on it. Then you look at it as agav hakarka. And you're adding on the word smother. But if you ate a fruit in its initial stages, even as early as smother, this is the matzah, you view it as if it's grapes ready to be harvested. Says Gemara, if that's the case, we had two opinions by smother. We had the Chacham says you look at it kama yafa, and then you have Rabbi Shua said this is the matzah. If you're telling me that Rabbi Shimon on smother holds that it's roinis and kilin anav ma'im the matzah, well, that's exactly what Rabbi Shua said. Says the Gemara, no, the difference between them would be chash gufna. To take off from the payment, this that the grapes weaken the grapevine. If they would have stayed there until the harvest season, because they're constantly nurturing and the moisture of the grapevine. But now that there was damage done, now there's not going to be any more weakening of the vine. That is the difference between their opinions. But it's not clear which one would say what, but that's going to be the difference between their opinions. Abayam says, no, it's not true. No, we do know definitively who says this. Why? Because Mantana, who's the Tana, the Chayish Lakhash Gufna, that's concerned for the weakening of the grave. I mean, that we consider. We will deduct from your payment the fact that now, if it would have ran a natural course, there would have been this financial loss, and now by your doing your damage, there's not going to be any more of that we're going to actually deduct from you. That's Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, who we learned, he says this elsewhere, and therefore he must be the one from these two opinions between Rabbi Shua and him that holds that, yeah, we would deduct that. Katan learned the Brisa, Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, Reb Shimon ben Menashe, who that's the one we want, Reb Shimon ben Yehuda. He said in Reb Shimon ben Menashe the following halacha. Oines, a rapist, a ma'anis, ein mishal mesatzar. He does not pay for the pain of the woman for what happened in that situation. Why? Let's start. Because ultimately, she was going to have the same pain of losing her virginity to her husband. So obviously, we deduct from payment according to what would have been that loss. So you see the same idea, which Taisa discusses exactly what tsar are we talking about. That, like he says, that there's a great pain for a virgin that on her first time when she loses her hymen, and most young girls become sick from this. That's because it was obvious that removing the besulim he's not going to pay because she's going to have that tsar tachas bailam. Obviously, other tsar he would pay. We're talking about tsar that anyway she would have had, so that he doesn't have to pay. Amrullah, they said to him, it's not true. Can't compare a woman that was having intimacy against her will to one that was done willingly. That's their machlekes. But upon him, we see that he holds, yeah, if she's going to have this, and we're going to deduct that from the liability of what you're doing. Now, Abaye says, Hani Tanoi, the Tanoi we're going to bring now, Rabbi Shimon Yehuda, Amr Dabei, they say the same thing. What's this? So Rabbi Shimon Yehuda is Hadamah. We just quote his teaching right now. Hani Tanoi Mahi. What's the Tanoim that hold like him? The time they learn the Brisa. This Brisa is discussing what's called Demei Vladis. Demei Vladis is that when a situation happens that a woman was caused to miscarry, so there's the value of the fetuses that the Torah says you have to pay. So there's a machlekes. He says Nache Chaya. We deduct what the husband would have had to pay for the midwife, for the doula, for the birthing process. Now, the nezek, the damage that the woman was damaged, and she's in pain now more than when she would have had a midwife. So that he's paying to the woman the nezek and the tsar. It comes, everything's included. Now, the Dmei Vladis itself, he gives to the husband. From that, what you give it to the husband, we're going to deduct the price that the husband would have had to pay for that doula for his wife. Ben Azam, he says, Nachem Ezoinis. He says, when a woman is pregnant and when she's going through childbirth, there's certain provisions that have to be given to the wife, whether it be IV, whether it be whatever it is, or actual food. Now there's no difficulty in the childbirth. That's it. There's no more babies. So you take away the food that he would have had to pay. You deduct that from the payment that you have to give to the husband. So again, obviously we see that these Tanoim hold that you deduct what would have ended up being expenses. Now that he saved on that, you don't have to. You could deduct from the payment you have to give. So the Gemara explains, according to one that says that you deduct the midwife, for sure you deduct what every woman in childbirth has to have, which is food. But the one that says you deduct the food, but you don't deduct the amount of a doula of a midwife. Why? Because the Amalei, because he could tell the perpetrator, it's a didi, my wife, she's well oiled, and she doesn't need a midwife. She does it on her own. And if you can't deduct that I would have had to pay for a midwife. Now going back to what we mentioned in the previous daf, in Chesed Beis, they did such they actual paskined, like Rav Nachman. Remember we said that when a person does his own damage regarding niske gufoi, so he said that is that evaluated as is, or is evaluated agav shishim. They did like Rav Nachman who held that you look at in regards to 60, just like Niskim and Maina. Now, Lishna Achrina, another version, which is a papa of Hun B'Di Yeshua, Shamu Dikla Agav Katina Da'ara. They evaluated a tree in regards to a small piece of land. They looked at it in regards to that small land. But that's only by, let's say, an Aramean tree, which is not such a high quality. So that you look at in regards to 60. But the Galusa, who he said you look at it, he charged the tree itself, but Dikla Parsa by a Persian tree, which Rashi says is very distinguished, and therefore it's evaluated on its own because that's how it's sold. Usually we say a whole field is sold as a field. So you look at it in regards to that. You don't look at it as regards to the tree itself. But the Persian trees are very expensive. They're sold independently, and therefore that's its actual value, and therefore that's why it's judged on its own. Mer brings the story Eliezer Zeira, as you get into Medbeis, Havasayim Misani Uchmi. He was wearing black shoes. Which Tracy says it sounds like that they didn't wear black shoes, and that's how it sounds like the more times Daf Chabeis. And the problem is we find other Gemaras that actually they wouldn't send white shoes on Yom Tov because they had to blacken it. Sounds like that they only wore black shoes. So Ben Tam says that people get very touchy about their shoe colors. You got to be black here in this town. So that the shoes for sure were black, but the shoelaces were white. And here when we're talking about black shoes, and Masechtas Tainis was that the shoe and the shoelaces were black. And that's what actually the famous Gemara in Sanhedrin says, that at the time of a Shmad, even if they want you to change your shoelaces, it's usher, because the shoelaces were different from that of the non-Jews. And this of Eliezer Zeir over here, that he was mourning, as we'll see in a moment, was that he was wearing black and he was covered with black, and he wanted even his shoelaces should be black, which there shouldn't be any white at all because of his endearment to Yerushalayim. That's what the Gemara is talking about, that his shoelaces were black. Okay, so I guess we're on the same level with our black shoelaces. Be that as it may, he was in the marketplace of Narda. Ashkachu de Berish Galusa, so the household of the Rish Galusa encountered him, and they said to him, what's going on? This is the Tznius police over here. What are you, the dress code? What's going on with these black shoes? Amalei said to them, Yerushalayim. He says, I'm mourning over Yerushalayim. So Amalei, they said to him, Ad chashivas l'sevul, you're distinguished enough to mourn over Yerushalayim? So but they thought he's arrogant, he's haughty. So look at that. They went and they threw him into prison because Bista Balgaiva. So they put him into prison. Amalei said to them, Gavar Rabbanah says, I'm a great person. You see, you have to, you tell him who you are. So Amalei said to him, no, how should we know that you're a great Siddha? Prove it. So Amalei said to them, look, so either you ask something from me, or I'll ask something from you. Amalei said to them, okay, you go first. You ask the question. Amalei said to them the following question, which obviously it relates back to our sugya. Haiman the Kad's Kufra. if someone cut down a bud by the dates, meaning just like beiser, which is like the beginning, like stages of a young grape. So that's the equivalent that it is by early stage of a date. My mashal, what does the guy pay? Somebody said to Vaseis, mashal de kufra. You pay the value of kufra, of how much this fruit is, which, as Rashi explains, it's not really worth that much right now. You take those unripe, fruits. Those are the ones you find on the ground that no one wants. It's not worth much. Says Vahava Tamri, but Eliezer Zeri responded, but at a later point in time, there's gonna be a date. There's gonna be worth something. So he said, "You're right. Misham Tamri Tamri. He should pay the value of a date." Amalei said to him, "But he didn't take a date from them." So Amalei said to him, "Look, Emelonad, you tell us what's the answer." So Amalahu, when people come and ask you the riddles, but is it okay? No, just tell me the answer already. So Amalahu, he said to them, "Bishishim." You evaluate it with 60 in regards to the property, which everything is included. Which someone buys a property with his payers, he looks what it's going to be worth. A smart person's raised an eyelid. He sees what it's going to be worth. He says, "Oh, so that's how you evaluate it." Amalei said to Mano Makabas, who says like you that we view this kufra like in regards to 60 of the property? Amalei he said to them, "Look, Shmuel Chai, Shmuel's alive. His court is around." So Shadika made the Shmuel, they sent him from the Shmuel. Amalei said to them, "Shaper kamaluchu b'shishim." He's saying very well that it's 60. And b'shapku, they let him out of jail for this not being a balgaiva. Is going aris areba. You could come with the pelts. You could come with the zachen. This zachita that you know what you're saying. So the Mishnah said, the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, he says, "Achla peres gemura mechulu." That if you eat full-fledged peres, then you got to pay full-fledged peres. So my time, what's the reason? Because Hadam Rahmani says this, that the Torah says, which was what the Tanakh was saying. That it grazes another field, that you evaluate in regards to the rest of the field, and not it itself. Yeah, that's something that needs a field. But these, if peres gemur, keeping the litzrich l'sada, it doesn't need the field, it just happens to be connected. You have to pay it as it is for the fruits themselves. Now, says, Don Rav had actually ruled. He paskin. He acted on a story, Kirimeir, which we're going to say right now what that is. And he ruled halacha. In other words, he taught his students that halacha is Kidib Shimon when he was paskening for future generations. And as the Gemara explains, one of them is relating to our sugya. Don Rav Kirimeir, Rav actual judge, like Remeir, it's not like learn the Brisa. Kasav, unrelated halacha. Kasav Larishan. If the husband wrote a document for the first guy who was trying to buy the field that was designated for his wife's ksuba, and the wife did not sign off on that. But Lasheni, when he wrote it to a second guy, she signed off on it. Of the ksuba, so the Remeir says she lost her rights for her ksuba. She can't say, "Oh, I was just doing it because I wanted to please my husband," because then you should have done it the first time. You didn't do it the first time. Obviously, when you did it the second time, because you were okay with it this time and you wanted it to be sold, so you cannot collect from him because you sold it yourself. He says, "No, she could say, I was just doing to please my husband. What do you have on me? And therefore, you have no rights to me." In that halacha, Rav had actually judged like Remeir and said that the she lost her ksuba. Now, this next thing, he didn't actually rule, but when he was giving his share, he ruled, he paskin, he instructed that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. Which is our Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon, he says, if the animal ate full-fledged fruits, the owner has to pay full-fledged fruits. If it's tusa, and we see that he paskin like this halacha Rabbi Shimon. The halacha of the next Mishnah, which continue on this mazik of Shein, we're still in Shur. We had done Shur, then we went to Bur, then we went back to Shur, as Tais already explained in the first Tais in this parak. But continuing the mazik of Shein, if someone piles up his grain in someone else's field without permission, and the owner of the host field, his animal eats this grain, Patri is exempt because this guy had no permission to put his stuff up here. And more of him, if his animal gets injured by the produce, the owner of the grain, who has no rights to put it here, is going to be liable. Now, if But if he piled it up with permission, the owner of the field is going to be liable if his animal ate up that guy's grain. Says the Gemara, limits not like Rabbi. Let's say our mission is not like Rabbi, because the Rabbi is like Rabbi Yomi says, why, if he gives him permission, is he liable? I thought Rabbi holds that you're only liable if you take responsibility that you're going to watch it. Amar Papa says no, because we're talking about a specific case. We're talking about the guardian of the granary. Their custom was that all the fields would go into one granary, and this guy would have his pile, he would have his pile, and they would appoint a shiur. And there, even Rebbe would agree. The kiyum to amalei ayil v'gadash. If he tells him, "Come in, bring your pile," ayil v'antalachu, it means come in and I'm going to watch it. And therefore, if that watchman's animal eats up that guy's grain, that's what we mean. The case that therefore he's going to be liable. Now look at the next Mishnah, which continues on the next mazik. We're moving on from shor and bar. We move on to the mazik of hever, which is the mazik of eish. Says the Mishnah, Shalechas be'era. Someone sends a fire in the hands of a deaf, mute, mentally deranged, or minor. So part of any other, he's exempt from the court punishment because he didn't do the mazik. But it's a negligence on your part in regards to the way heaven looks at it, because indirectly you're going to cause that the cheresh of the cotton is going to burn up someone else's stuff. If you send it in the hands of a normal person, so the normal person is liable because he has his own free will. Now, or if one guy brings the fire, one guy brings the wood. The guy who brought the wood is going to be liable because, like Rashi explains, when the guy brought the fire, if not for the guy bringing the wood, the first guy's fire wouldn't have lasted. So it's the last guy who is maintaining the fire. Now, let's say the other way around. Let's say one guy brings the wood, one guy brings the fire. Now, maybe the guy who brought the fire is going to be like, could just bring wood, it's nothing. Now, what happens in Ba'ach Liba? Let's say one guy brought the wood, one guy brings the fire, but then one guy goes and blows it. The guy who blew it was now made that the fire flies off and burns the next guy's bungalow. If the wind blew it, Kulam B'Turin, they're all going to be exempt because ultimately it was neither one of them that ultimately caused the fire to burn. Now, explaining the halacha of the reisha of sending the fire in the hand of Chesed B'Katan, we have a machlekes. Amar Shlaka Shmei Dechizki says, Loishan, we didn't learn that you're part of a Chesed B'Katan El Shemas Like Echaz V'Libu. We already quoted this previously on Daf Testament Beis, and we had on Daf Chabeis, that we only learned this if he gave him Shemas Like Echaz V'Libu. He gave the Cheresh, the Chesed B'Katan, he gave his 8-year-old, an 8-year-old boy a coal, and the boy blew. He made the thing. He was so excited he's going to make some type of campfire, and then it burned up 3 cottages. That's where you're going to be potter. But he gave him actual flame. Chayev, the adult is going to be liable. My time, what's the reason? Because my it's his own actions that caused this, because it was his fire that caused it to fire. Although he gave it to a chesed v'katan. Rabbi Shloimy says, no, even if he gave the 8-year-old boy an actual flame, he's going to be exempt. My time, what's the reason? It was the holding of the deaf mute or the child, whatever, that caused, it's isha mishum chitzav, it was the arrows of the child. Said the adult would only be liable contribution if he gave him over thorns, as you can see in the type of Samach Aleph, salasa, small wood chips, and shraga, and the flame. And then it's for sure his action that caused it, because then you have all the ingredients over there. It's everything that he did, and it's ready to blow up. That's where he's going to be liable. So that's a machlekes between the Shlach and Yechanan. This exemption of giving over the chesed v'katan, is it only by a coal, and then the child flames it up, or is even if he gives him actual flame, he's only liable if he gave him all the ingredients, not just the flame, and then he would be liable. Thank you to any time for those things.